we're doing equations with radicals, and these radicals could be square roots, cubic roots, any roots. We're gonna concentrate on square roots today. An equation with radicals is an equation of the form square root of f of x equals g of x. Before we solve this, we need to do the domain, to find the domain of the equation. The domain of the equation is f of x cannot be negative. G of x cannot be negative. So both f of x and g of x must be greater than or equal to 0. It's very important to do the domain. After you do the domain, you square both sides. When you square both sides, you solve the resulting equation. The resulting equation could be linear, quadratic, or a different type of equation. But that's how you simplify it. And it is optional to check in the end, to check your result by putting it back into the equation and see if the left side will equal the right side. Let's start with this example. Square root of x equals 6. The domain of this is very simple. The right side is already positive. We want the x to also be positive. So x should be greater than 0. Any answer we get should be greater than or equal to 0 if it's correct. Okay. Let us square both sides. Okay. Square root of x equals 6. I'm going to square the left side and square the right side. All right. Square root of x squared is just x, and then 6 squared is 36. That's the answer. Done. And that's it. That's what you do with these equations. In this example, we're solving square root of x minus 4 equals 3. The right side is positive. We want x minus 4 to be greater than or equal to 0, so x should be greater than or equal to 4. So our final answer should be greater than or equal to 4. Next, step 2. Step 1 is find the domain. Step 2 is square both sides. Square both sides. Square, square. When you square x minus 4 squared, the only thing that the square does to the square root is it cancels it. So that leaves us with x minus 4. X minus 4 equals 3 squared, which is 9. This is a linear equation. Add 4 to both sides. That gives you x equals 13, which is correct. Because we want the answer to be greater than or equal to 4. In example 2 or 3, we have a minus 10 here that's with the radical. We have a minus 6 that's with the radical. So before we do the domain or anything, we need to simplify this equation. Have a radical by itself on one side. So we're going to add 10 to both sides. And that gives us square root of x minus 3 equals minus 6 plus 10, which is 4. Now we do the domain. We want x minus 3 to be greater than or equal to 0, so x is greater than or equal to 3. We're going to square both sides next. Square root of x minus 3 squared is just x minus 3, and then 4 squared is 16. This is a linear equation. Add 3 to both sides, and that will give us x equals 19. That's the solution. Looks like it, but this example looks like it, but the outcome is not going to be the same. In example 204, first we simplify by removing the 6, adding 6 to both sides. But when you add 6 to both sides, that leaves you with square root of x minus 3 equals minus 10 plus 6, which is minus 4. The right side is negative. There's no point in doing anything else. This has no real solution. Remember, both sides must be positive. No real solution. So this problem here doesn't have a solution. Okay. I'm not going to bother doing the domain for this. And the reason is that what's inside here is always positive. And even if you didn't know and you did not do the domain, it's okay. You can go through the steps. When you get your final answer, put it back in the equation and see if it works. So we want this to be positive. We also want the right side to be positive. But I'm not going to bother with them. So what I'm going to do is square both sides directly. Square this side and then square this side. And this is what you will end up with. When you square a square root, you will end up with what was it under it. X squared plus x plus 6 equals x squared. Subtract x squared from both sides. So that gives you x plus 6 equals 0. X equals negative 6. We said the right side was x, and x should be greater than 0 or equal to 0. X can't be negative because x is on the right side. So there's no solution. Because the only solution we got was negative, and x can't be negative. X will have to be positive because the right side and the left side must both be positive. So this problem here has no solution.